Okay, so if you've been watching this whole AI thing explode over the last year, maybe feeling a bit like you're on the outside looking in, thinking, how do I even start without needing, like, a computer science degree? Well, this deep dive, this is exactly for you. We've distilled this really great four-phase plan. It's structured, it's actionable, and the promise is, frankly, pretty bold. Zero to practical competence in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's ambitious, but the source material lays it out very clearly. And it's not just about, learning a few commands for one tool. It's deeper.
Right, not just using the tools, but understanding them strategically.
Exactly. It tackles that feeling of being overwhelmed, that paralysis. The goal isn't just teaching you a tool, it's building a foundation, a solid one, so you can look at the next AI tool that comes out and actually evaluate it critically.
I really liked how the guide set out its core objectives. It felt more like a philosophy than just a list of steps. What were those main pillars again?
Yeah, there were four key ones. The first is all about democratizing access. Basically breaking down that barrier, that feeling that it's too complex, especially with terms like LLMs, large language models.
Making it less intimidating.
Right. Then second, fostering critical literacy. This is huge. Understanding the concepts behind it all so you know why the AI does what it does, not just what it does.
That literacy part feels crucial. What's next?
Third is developing practical competence. And this really zooms in on one specific skill, prompt engineering, getting good at talking to the AI.
We'll definitely need to dig into that one. And the last pillar.
Number four is establishing continuous learning. Because, let's face it, this field changes ridiculously fast. So it gives you a roadmap for what comes after those first 6 weeks, how to specialize.
Okay, 6 weeks. It sounds intense, but the benchmarks they set seem quite clear. Let's talk about that timeline for you, the listener. End of week 1.
By the end of that first week, the goal is to be comfortable interacting with at least 2 different LLMs text generators and 2 different image generators.
Not just sticking to one platform, then. You need to compare.
Absolutely crucial. Then, weeks 2 and 3 are about the foundations. Taking an introductory course, and this is key, a no-code course, covering things like machine learning basics, neural networks, even ethics.
So you get the concepts without getting bogged down in programming yet. Makes sense. And weeks 4 to 6.
That's where the rubber meets the road. You need to actually use AI in a real project, something tangible. Personal, professional, doesn't matter. Integrate it.
And the final goal for that 6-week mark.
Define an area you want to go deeper in. Maybe it's natural language processing, maybe computer vision, maybe something else. And figure out your next learning steps. Have a plan. Okay, let's rewind. How does this all kick off? Phase 1, immersion and familiarization. This is like the first 1 to 3 days. Yeah, it starts fast. The objective here is just jump in, get your hands dirty, experiment, get a feel and intuition for what these things can do now, and importantly, where they fall flat.
And for LLMs, the text ones, the guide is super specific. Sign up for free accounts on both OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google Gemini.
Yes, both. Because comparing them is the whole point initially.
Why is that comparison so vital right at the start?
Well, they're trained differently on different data with different guidelines. So they have different strengths, different weaknesses, different biases. Asking the exact same question or task to both is the quickest way to see those differences pop up.
And we're not talking about basic stuff like what's the capital of France,
Right?
right?
Yeah,
The sources emphasize going beyond simple search-like questions.
definitely. You need to push them. Give them complex tasks.
Like what? Give us some examples from the guide.
Okay, try asking it to draft a one-page business plan. Maybe for something niche, like a sustainable coffee startup. It needs a value proposition, target market, maybe a basic marketing funnel outline.
Okay, that's pretty involved.
Or ask it to compare complex philosophical ideas, like lay out the core differences between existentialism and stoicism, if you mention key figures. Or, if you know even a tiny bit of code, give it a simple broken snippet and ask it to find the bug and explain why it's wrong. That tests synthesis.
So really pushing the reasoning and generation side, not just information retrieval. What about visuals?
Yeah.
Text is just the start, right?
Exactly. Phase 1 also says, dive into image generation. Try out tools like Microsoft Image Creator that uses DALL-E 3 technology, or maybe Leonardo.ai. This is where you really start to grasp prompt engineering. Prompting. Let's use that classic cat example.
Yeah.
You start simple.
Right, you type a cat and you get, well, a cat, probably pretty generic, forgettable.
Okay.
But then you iterate, you refine. The guide stresses this. You learn fast that the output quality is directly tied to how specific your prompt is. So you go from a cat to a fluffy Siamese cat lounging on a worn velvet armchair, vintage photography style, dramatic side lighting.
And the difference is huge, night and day. That aha moment, seeing how your words directly shape the output, that's the core goal of this first messy phase. Okay, that initial experimentation sounds fun, but the sources warn about just tinkering without understanding, right? Which leads perfectly into phase 2, conceptual literacy and foundational learning. This is weeks 1 to 3. Why pull back from the tools to hit the books, so to speak? Because context is everything. If you experiment without knowing how these things work, you start getting weird ideas about them, like thinking they're truly intelligent or always factual. They're statistical prediction machines, fundamentally.
So the theory provides guardrails for the experimentation.
Exactly. And this phase focuses on accessible, no-code resources. You don't need to be a coder to grasp the core ideas.
Which specific resources did the guide recommend?
2 main free ones stood out. First, Elements of AI. It's from the University of Helsinki, globally recognized. A fantastic non-technical starting point covering machine learning, neural networks, even algorithmic bias. Really accessible.
Okay, Elements of AI. And the second one?
Google's own AI crash course. It's more modular, practical, offers concise lessons on how these big systems actually learn from data.
Now, speaking of how they work, the guide mentioned this aha moment about understanding the engine underneath. They specifically pointed to a 2017 research paper, Attention is All You Need. That sounds important.
Oh, it's revolutionary. Absolutely game-changing. That paper introduced what's called the transformer architecture.
Transformer.
And that architecture is the foundation for basically all the major LLMs we use today. GPT, Gemini, all of them.
Why was it such a big deal? For someone trying to avoid the deep technical weeds, what did the transformer do differently?
Okay, think of it like this. Before transformers, models kind of read sentences word by word, almost linearly. They'd often forget the beginning of a long sentence by the time they got to the end,
Right.
losing context.
Exactly. The transformer's big innovation was this thing called the attention mechanism. It lets the AI look at all the words in your input at the same time and figure out which words are most important in relation to each other, understanding the context. Ah, so it can see the whole picture, not just word by word.
Precisely. That's what allows them to handle long, complex requests, to keep track of the conversation, to synthesize information across paragraphs. It's what makes them feel coherent. That context piece is vital. And to balance that technical understanding, the guide also recommended some critical reading, specifically Melanie Mitchell's book, Artificial Intelligence, a guide for thinking humans. Yes, highly recommended. Because it's crucial to have a grounded perspective. Mitchell's book cuts through the hype. It explains the actual capabilities and, importantly, the limitations of current AI based on science, not science fiction. Helps you make realistic plans. Okay, that critical grounding sets us up perfectly for phase 3. Development of critical skills, focusing squarely on prompt engineering. This is weeks 2 through 4. It was striking how much emphasis the source put on this. They called it basically the most valuable skill right now. I mean, yeah, you could argue it's the new digital literacy skill. Your ability to communicate effectively with the AI, that's your bottleneck. If you can't ask well, the best AI in the world isn't much use to you.
So the guide detailed specific strategies, proven ones.
Yes, 4 key ones that you really need to internalize, make almost second nature.
Let's break them down. What's the first one?
Persona and role. Don't just ask a question. Tell the AI who it should be. Act as a senior data scientist, or you are a marketing expert specializing in small retail businesses.
Why does that work so well?
It seems to help the model access the most relevant parts of its vast training data. It narrows the focus, improves the quality and relevance of the output significantly.
Okay, persona. What's number 2?
Context and specificity. This sounds obvious, but people skip it. Give it the background. Tell it the desired tone. Formal, casual, witty. Specify the length. And crucially, define the format you need. Markdown, a table, JSON. Be explicit.
Got it. Context, format, tone. Number 3. This one's really powerful, maybe the most impactful. Chain of thought prompting, or COTI. Chain of thought. Okay, what is that?
It's surprisingly simple. You add a phrase like, think step by step before providing the answer.
Wait, hang on. Does that just make the AI ramble? Like show its work unnecessarily and make the output longer? Is it just a trick?
That's a really common question. But the research suggests it's much more than that. Forcing it to outline its reasoning steps before giving the final answer actually seems to improve the quality of that reasoning.
Oh, so?
It seems to help the model structure its internal process, catch potential errors or inconsistencies in its own thinking. So for complex problems, math, logic puzzles, COTI can genuinely boost accuracy. It's like it's debugging itself in real time.
Huh. That connects back to phase two, right? Understanding the why behind the prompt. Okay, COSD. And the last strategy.
Iteration. This is fundamental. Never accept the first output as final. Treat the AI like a junior assistant. You need to guide it, refine its work, take that answer and make it more concise. Rewrite that paragraph, but focus on the ethical implications. Expand on point number 3. You coach it.
Constant refinement. And where can people learn more about these prompt techniques?
The guide points to official resources, like the OpenAI Prompt Engineering Guide, and also platforms like learnprompting.org, which has tons of free detailed tutorials, great resources. Okay, that brings us to the final phase, phase 4, integration and practical application. This runs from week 3, potentially up to week 6. Time to actually build something, right? Consolidate all that learning. Exactly. Theory is great. Practice makes perfect. The guide suggests 3 types of projects to really cement your skills. First one, workflow automation.
Okay, automating workflows. Give me a concrete example.
Think about a repetitive task you do, maybe summarizing long meeting notes every week, or drafting similar intro emails to new clients, just changing a few details. Design a really robust prompt that does that for you. Turn a half-hour chore into like a 30-second task.
Nice. Okay, project type 2.
Basic data analysis. If you have access to tools that can handle data, like the paid version of ChatGPT or maybe Google Colab's assistants, try feeding it simple data.
Like what kind of data?
Something non-sensitive, like export your monthly credit card expenses into a spreadsheet, a CSV file. Upload it. Ask the AI to spot spending trends, maybe create a simple chart, or just summarize where the money went. It's a gentle way into data analysis without needing specialized software right away.
Low stakes, practical. Good idea. And the third project type.
Portfolio creation. Use the skills you've built with both text and image generation. Create assets for a personal project or even just a hypothetical one. Generate some business name ideas. Draft a logo concept with an image tool. Maybe outline a storyboard for a short video. Write a first draft of a blog post. Build something you can actually show off. Okay, building real things. But this is where the guide gets really crucial, right? As you start using these tools seriously, you have to confront the limitations, the ethical stuff. Let's talk about the big one. Hallucinations. Ugh, yes. Hallucinations. This is probably the single biggest risk you need to manage constantly. These models are built to generate plausible text, the statistically likely next word. That doesn't mean the text is true.
They sound confident even when they're wrong.
Exactly. They can generate incredibly convincing nonsense, complete fabrications.
If you can't trust the facts, what's the point? Doesn't that kill the productivity gain if you have to double-check everything? That's the critical balance you have to strike. The absolute rule is treat AI output like a draft. A very fast, often very eloquent, but potentially error-prone draft from an intern. You must verify any factual claims against reliable primary sources, always. So the value is in speed and synthesis, not final authority.
Precisely. Use it to accelerate idea generation, drafting, summarizing by maybe 90%. Then spend that saved time, that crucial 10%, on rigorous fact-checking and quality control. Okay, so it's an augmentation tool, helps you think faster, but doesn't replace your critical thinking, which actually leads to the next challenge mentioned, cognitive dependence. Yeah, the worry is real.
Yeah.
If we constantly outsource thinking tasks, summarizing articles we should read, solving problems we should wrestle with, do our own cognitive skills start too?
Like a muscle we stop using, kind of. The goal should be to use AI to handle the low-level cognitive load, freeing up your brain power for the really important stuff. Strategy, creativity, deep critical analysis, ethical judgment. It's a fine line. Don't use it to avoid thinking. That requires discipline. And then there's data security. The guide was very clear on this. Non-negotiable.
Absolutely non-negotiable. Do not feed confidential company data, sensitive personal information, or anything proprietary into these public-facing AI platforms.
Why not?
Because many of these services state in their terms that they might review conversations to improve their models. You have to assume that anything you type in could potentially be seen by humans or used in future training data. If it's sensitive, keep it out, period. Okay, that's a critical warning. So wrapping this all up, we've walked through this 4-phase journey, starting with immersion, moving to foundational theory, then developing the core skill of prompting, and finally applied practice with those projects. And the underlying principle is active learning, right? You're learning the concepts while you're interacting with the tools. That combination is way more effective than just reading about it.
It really seems like the barriers to starting with AI are lower than ever. You can begin this whole 6-week plan right now, mostly with free tools.
Totally. Getting started is easy, but achieving real mastery, that's not just about using the tools. It's about building that deeper critical understanding. knowing how to apply AI strategically, effectively, and ethically to solve actual problems.
Which brings us to that final thought-provoking question the source material leaves us with. As you start integrating these incredibly powerful tools into your work, into your life over these next 6 weeks and beyond, what specific fundamental human skill, maybe it's critical thinking, maybe deep reading, maybe fact verification, will you consciously decide to protect and practice?
What will you make sure the AI augments rather than replaces? That intentionality, that awareness, that seems key to navigating this new era successfully.